Okay, so this is a property that's for sale by owner.
Yes.
It's 90 days on market. What are they asking for it?
Currently, it's 79,000.
They're asking 79,000. Have you had the chance to analyze the deal at all, run any numbers? What are you thinking about like the ARV? What might this property be worth once it's
Sure.
fixed up?
So the average repair value I saw was $378,840,000.
Okay, so let's just call it 380.
Sure. Ooh, I like that.
Welcome back to the show. Today we are talking with Chanel, a new real estate investor and a college student who is desperately trying to get her first deal and wrap her mind around the entirety of the process and how she sees other people closing deals in her market while she's been unable to. Chanel is a student of my 14-day beginners bootcamp, which is why I'm so excited to get to talk to her on this one-on-one mentorship call, as well as share it with the rest of you. We're going to talk about an adjustment that I think she needs to make to her investing strategy, and it's one that I recommend a lot of beginners make because of the state of the market right now. And then we're also going to evaluate a deal together and figure out why Chanel's offer price is drastically different than the asking price for the property. But before we jump in, if you remember last week's episode with Saul, he was another real estate investor. He's got 6 deals under his belt so far, and he had his 7th under contract with just 16 days to finish it. Based on Saul's numbers, he put that deal under contract a little bit too high, but I actually went back and analyzed that property myself to find the ARV, the rehab budget, as well as what I would offer for it, and I shared it with all of the students in my Run the Numbers monthly training program. That's where, for just $9 a month, I evaluate 2 deals that students send me and walk you through the process of figuring out if they're a good deal or not and what I would offer on them. So if you want to see what I would offer on Saul's deal, as well as Chanel's deal that we go over in this episode, I'll leave a link to a free trial to that training program so you can check those out. And if you want to stick around, you'll be able to submit deals to me to evaluate each month. And finally, if you're listening to this on a podcast episode, please give us a rating for 5 stars. And if you're here on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Without further ado, let's get to Chanel's episode. Chanel, thank you for coming on to chat with me today. It looks like you're in a library, but
Yes.
are you a student? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So I am a student. I'm currently pursuing my bachelor's degree. I graduated with my associates last May in 2022. And so some background about my professional experience is I am someone who I'm not the 9 to 5 type of person. I like to gain structure, but to come into a place that's kind of to the T, you have to behave this way. You have to, convince other people to like you. I'm not interested in doing any of that, even though I've tried. So one thing that I've learned this year in 2023 is it's time to bet on myself. I am a leader in a lot of different ways. And for me, it's like, okay, it's time to walk it like you talk it. And that's where I'm at. For sure. So that's where I'm at right now. I am 29, just a little more background. Cool. 29. I'm in the Central Florida area. I'm in the virtual market of South Carolina, some cities. Okay. We could go into that, as well as I'm looking into where my hometown is, which is Detroit, Michigan. And okay. So, yeah.
Okay. I love it. For so sure. I agree. I think I've been someone also who's kind of like the 9 to 5 life isn't the life for me. And that's what led me to real estate. How long have you been at the real estate thing and how's it going?
Sure. So I was introduced to the concept in 2017. I went to a seminar local to me and, just pretty much attracted from a book that I was reading. And that's kind of the promotion that the group leaders were kind of presenting under that book name. And so it attracted me to it. I wanted to hear more about it. I ended up buying a package to get to their longer, seminar space. And so I remember feeling super inspired from what I heard. I believe I was about 21 and not really taking life that serious.
Yeah.
And so while the seminar opened my eyes to seeing opportunities. Once I left, the seminar, I was seeing commercial for sale signs or stuff like that. And I was like, oh, okay. I knew what I was looking at, but I didn't know what to do or, didn't know that I was someone who could take that next step. And so more recently, like I mentioned this year, 2023, I was just like, this is not working. I was working for temp agencies coming out of my last degree and nothing was consistent. I started entertaining the idea of multifamily properties, like using that as a passive income.
Hmm.
However, when I was discussing those options with a loan officer, we went over my income history. And because nothing was that consistent, there was not much that, there was to work off of. And my thoughts
Right.
were, if this property is occupied, then, it would qualify for my income. One way or another, they were like, listen, your specific income is not going to work for, to get that conversation started. And so it
Hmm.
was fair. I'm someone who does my best to present myself the way I am. And I said to myself, if this isn't working, let's figure out what's another another alternative. And so that's when your channel started to populate some way somehow. I don't know how, Lili, but some way somehow your channel started to show up on my YouTube feed. And one thing led to another. My interest is peaked and things like that. And you were like, bam, I have a course, I have a boot camp. And I was just like, sign me up.
I'm super excited that you were able to join the boot camp and you've gotten in there, you've
Absolutely.
gotten a chance for us to have this conversation and
Yeah,
kind of to help you out and get you going with the action. Because I think there's so many people out there and there's that talk about what to do, right? Myself included. And I think
okay.
that that is great. We need to know what to do, but really applying the how, the when, and like actually taking that action and having
Absolutely.
someone there who can help hold us accountable. It's a huge, huge part of it. So congratulations. I'm
100%.
glad you've
Thank
joined
you.
and excited to work with you, or continue
Absolutely.
working with you. The housing market changes all the time. And there are differences between the way that I started investing in 2020 and the way that you might choose to invest now in 2024. And one of those is rather than looking for a real estate deal, you want to look for other opportunities in real estate that will give you capital in the meantime and confidence until you're ready to put your first deal under contract. And this is something that I recommended to Chanel that I think is really going to help her. You need some quick wins, and we're going to talk about that in a moment because I actually just posted a video on my main channel about this, about going after a deal versus finding other ways to bring value to investors and to yourself in order to get some quick wins and start making some money even before you hit your
I
first
love
deal.
that.
So we'll talk about that in a moment. But in terms of your skill set, right? So if
Okay.
I'm an investor in Detroit or in, you said North Carolina,
Yeah, or South. Sorry.
South Carolina. Okay, so if I'm an investor in Detroit or in South Carolina and I get a message from Chanel, pops up, on my Facebook Messenger, so we're part of the
Yes.
same local Facebook group, other than saying, "Hey, I have a great deal," right?
Mm-hmm.
Because maybe you're struggling to find a great deal. Other than saying that, what other value could you bring me as an investor?
It's a very good question. So I'm super professional. I've worked in customer service for 7+ years before I started my associates. So communication is one of my top quality traits.
Sure.
So touching base with people as far as following up, maybe, contacting certain vendors and holding them accountable. So there's that.
Hmm.
What else? Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think, with piggybacking off of following up, consistency is something that I definitely do offer as far as like I'm not gonna give up even if one
Hmm.
day I'm having not the best day. That next day I'm back on fire and you never knew anything happened. Yeah, so I definitely think that one is one. If I was to
Yeah.
say this is what I got, it would be communications. If someone needed somebody to call somebody or to communicate and then to stay on top of that, that's who that's what I could bring.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
I think that's a very valuable skill, right? And we're going to talk through some deals, but I think a common problem that new investors have is, and this is something that as the market changes, this is a new issue that you may be running into that maybe I didn't run into when I first started, is that the market can sometimes be so competitive that
Right.
as a new investor, it's hard to break in, right? And that can be dependent on your market, that can be dependent on how you're finding deals, that can be dependent on how you're analyzing them. Are you analyzing them
Right.
correctly? Which we'll go through. But we want to think about like, what can you do to be involved in real estate, gaining some connections, some confidence, and some money, even before you
Yeah.
ever get a deal?
Yeah.
And as someone who is not local to your market, you need to find ways to do that virtually. So I'm like, Chanel, why are you not looking to be a virtual assistant to a real estate investor in Detroit? or looking to be a cold caller for a real estate investor in North Carolina. There's a lot of side hustles or things that you could do to be involved in real estate before you ever get your first deal, to kind of work your way up, and so you don't have to wait for income to start coming in until you get that deal. You know what I mean?
I love that. I love
So
that.
let's pretend that, okay, you've kind of shifted your focus. I'm still that investor in Detroit. How might you message me and kind of present yourself to bring me value?
Sure, sure. I would inbox you saying, "Hi, investor. My name is Chanel Williams, and I specialize in business administration and communication.
Mm-hmm.
If there is any virtual assistance needs that you may have, such as cold calling, vendor follow ups, and things of that nature, I'd be more than happy to bridge that gap that you have in your needs. Here's my contact information, and I hope to hear and work with you very soon."
Oh, girl, you're good. Yeah,
I
you're
tell you,
good.
I'm
That was
surgical
good.
with it.
That was so good. That was
For
so good. So
sure.
for everybody listening, there's a couple things, like, you're super professional. I love like business administration. So
Yes.
good. I love that you gave specifics of the things that you could help with, because I get DMs every day that are like, Lili, I can help you. And I'm like, with what?
What a,
Please.
right, right.
Like, be specific. I need help, but
Sure. I
how
need to
can
know
you help?
what
I
your,
love that you gave
yeah,
specifics, right?
absolutely.
Cold calling, vendor follow up. I think another one is like email management between title companies,
Ooh,
sellers, agents, whatever it might be. Property research, right? Prop or lead
yes.
follow up, right? These are all things that are skills. These are skills that we talked about inside of the boot camp, right? That you
Sure.
can apply immediately without ever having to come across a good deal. And you still look for
Absolutely.
deals in the meantime, but I think getting those quick wins, getting that
Absolutely.
experience, those connections, that's going to be the thing that helps to kind of, like you said, bridge that gap.
For sure. I love that idea. That was amazing. And you did
Okay,
bring it
dope.
up in you brought it up in the boot camp. So what have I been doing with this information? Yes, I love that.
No, it's okay. It's okay. This is why we work together. This is why we kind
Yeah.
of, everybody's situation is different, right? And so
Right.
as we think about what are the things that you need, we think about how do we get there. So that feels helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, great.
Absolutely.
Now, it's still very, very important for you to still be looking for good deals and still be able to recognize when you've got a good deal on your hands. And so I know you brought a deal today that you
Yes.
want to talk about. Let's
Yes.
transition to kind of analyzing that and figuring out, is it a good deal or not?
Okay, sounds
So
good.
tell me, where is this property located? Let's just go one by one.
Sure. It is Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay. And how did you stumble across this? Is it on market, or did you somehow find it off market?
It is on market on Zillow is where I found
Okay.
it, and it's for sale by owner.
Okay. So for sale by owner, so there's not a real estate agent
Right.
involved. And
Yes.
what is the owner's reason for selling? Is there some type of distress or situation?
Sure. So the property is definitely one of those distressed properties. Like you could drive for dollars and tell this is a
Okay.
distressed property. It seems to me that the owner, who, yes, the owner of the property is deceased. And so this person who is selling it, he's either a relative or he got it via auction. I'm not necessarily sure. We did talk about it, but I'm pretty
Hmm.
sure he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. He has the papers, the deeds for it. If you want it, this is how much it's
Right.
going to be. So that's where we are right now.
Okay. Very cool.
Hmm.
And do you know how long it's been on market?
Yes, if I'm not mistaken, the last time I checked, it was about 90 days.
Okay.
About. It
So
was like 89. Yeah, you got it. Sorry.
yeah. No, no, no. 89, 90 days. That's good.
Yeah,
So it's been some time. It's not like, oh, it
absolutely.
came on market a couple of days ago.
Sure. Exactly.
Okay. So something I always think about when I'm looking at the days on market, and there's actually a place on PropStream where you can analyze the market itself. I'll leave a link in the description for anybody who wants to check out this free training on PropStream. You have access to it. It's inside the boot camp. So just go to like the bonus trainings day and you'll see it there. PropStream did this free market research training exclusively for the Lili Invest audience. So if you want to check it out for free, I'll leave a link in the description for you to sign up. It's very, very important that you understand your market, because things like the days on market or the average sale price or even just the areas of town where investors are active are going to be very different from market to market. And it's your responsibility to know the area where you're investing. You can look at what the average days on market is for that area, and then you can compare that to your particular property. So
Sure.
let's just imagine, I don't know, right? But let's just imagine that the average days on market for that area is 30 days or so, right? That's a very typical days on market. If this property's been on market 90 days, what do you think that might be indicating?
Sure. So, what I've learned in this time is that sometimes it's on market longer because the owners want to get closest to their asking price as possible. Other times, if the property has been under contingency or, pending, and then it goes back on sale, I think that that's a result of maybe someone checking it out through an inspection and it just not being up to par. Yeah. And so it's a number of reasons for sure.
As we go through Chanel's deal, be sure to put yourself in the mindset of other investors in the area who have seen this deal. Whenever there's a property on market for an extended period of time, like 90 days, and it hasn't sold, you don't want to fool yourself into thinking that you found a diamond in the rough. That property is out there for everyone to see. You want to figure out what are the problems or issues of why this property hasn't sold to another investor, and can you solve them in order to create a deal where other people have been unable to? Yeah, I agree. Those are the two I was thinking about. They're
Yeah.
stuck way too high on a price, or there's something about the property where no other investor is really trying to scoop it up. Now, that doesn't mean that this is a bad deal, right? It just
Right.
means we have to dig deeper and investigate why is it sitting on market for so long, right? And so those are the things that you want to be cautious about, because sometimes people will be like, "Oh my goodness, this is an amazing deal. I'm going to go snatch it up for exactly what they're asking for it." And it's
Sure.
like, "Wait a minute. If it's been on market 90 days, why has no other investor in that market snatched it up for what they're asking for it?"
Right.
Right? So I always come into the situation not thinking that I'm the smartest person that's seen this property. I'm thinking there is some other more experienced investor with more money
Yeah.
who's looked at this deal and they have not decided to buy it for what the asking price is. So that's a clue to me about how I should be approaching this deal. Does that make
Right.
sense?
Yeah. For sure.
Okay. So let's talk about some of those numbers. Okay. So this is a property that's for sale by owner. It's 90 days on market. What are they asking for it?
Currently, it's 79,000.
Okay. They're asking 79,000. And have you had the chance to analyze the deal at all, run any numbers? What are you thinking about, like, the ARV? What might this property be worth once it's
Sure.
fixed up?
So the average repair value I saw was $378,840,000.
Okay, so let's just call it 380.
Sure. Ooh, I like that.
Okay, so we're going to call it 380K. And what do you think the rehab budget would be to get it there?
Sure. So it's very heavy. In fact, it'll need an addition. So to be honest with you, I have on my notes about 50 to 60. However, with an addition, it'll probably be that plus. Right. An addition, I don't know, is that like $20,000 or more? Is that like if because let me see this. The
Hmm.
comps that I'm seeing, this property that we're looking at, it is a two-bedroom, one bath. The
Hmm.
comps that I'm seeing started off as a two-bedroom, one bath, or two-bedroom, yeah. And then there was additions built into it. Now there are three. They went up to that amount. I'm putting my best guess that this property would need to do the same. And so when I look at my quick, what is it? I watch Jerry Norton a lot. And
Hmm.
so he kind of did this quick thing that if something needs a heavy rehab and it has this amount of square footage, then this is how you could look at that as far as like, quick estimate. So my notes, while it says 50 to 60, that would be towards the current square footage, whereas it's
Right.
not towards that second step of square footage. And so I guess we could say 70 to 80. Okay.
Okay, let's call it 75.
Let's call it 75.
Okay.
Thanks for working
And
with me there.
yeah, I mean, this is all kind of hypothetical, right? We're not sure.
Sure.
So from there, the next question I ask is, how much would you like to make on this deal?
Sure. I'm looking towards 15, if not 20.
Okay, let's call it 20.
Let's call it 20. Gotta be sure. You
Okay.
gotta be.
Now we're gonna come back, and I really want to dig into this rehab budget, and
Okay.
we're actually gonna pull up the rehab calculator that I made and that you have access to in the boot camp, and we're gonna go line
Okay.
by line and kind of build out a rehab budget. But
Sure.
before we even get there, what do you do from here? Do you know how to put these numbers into the offer price equation?
I know it is ARV
Mm-hmm.
multiplied by 70 or so percent
Mm-hmm.
minus my 20, and that's the maximum.
Okay. You missed a step.
Oh,
You missed an
minus the
important step.
rehab.
There
Minus
you
the
go. Minus
rehab.
the
My
rehab
bad, my
budget.
bad, my bad. Yeah.
So let's do this together. We're gonna start with our 380K
Yep.
times 70%. What's that equal?
266,000.
Yep. So we'll take our 266
Mm-hmm.
and we'll subtract our 75K for our rehab budget.
Right. All right.
So now we're at 191
Yes.
minus our wholesale fee,
Yeah.
which is 20K,
Yes.
which would equal 171
Yes.
as our maximum allowable offer. Okay. How does that make you feel? What do you think of that?
It's a big number.
That is a big number.
Yeah, for sure. This number goes to the end buyer, correct?
No, so when we think about our offer,
Okay.
maximum allowable offer is the offer to the seller,
I got it.
right?
I
So
got
then
it.
if we're thinking about your end buyer, you would be asking your end buyer for 20,000 more than that so that you can
Right.
make your wholesale fee.
Right. Got it.
So if we were going off of this equation, it would be 171 to the seller, 191 to the buyer.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's a big giant red flag that I see. Do you see it waving?
There's a gap in between the maximum offer and the current asking.
Yeah, so they're asking 79 grand for this,
Sure. Yeah.
and no one's bought it in 90 days. If your formula is correct, somebody should be willing to pay up to $191,000 for this deal.
Right.
So are they underpricing this? And is everyone in the market missing out on a good deal? Or are your numbers wrong?
Right. Can't be wrong. I did them with Lili.
You didn't do these with me. I didn't tell you. I didn't tell you
Right.
the ARV and the rehab.
Okay. Sure. Right. Yeah.
Let's think about it,
Right.
right? So this property's for sale for 79,000 for 90 days.
Mm-hmm.
Have all of the investors in South Carolina missed out on this home run deal?
Right.
Or did you calculate your ARV and your rehab incorrectly?
It's a very good question. I don't know because I really want to say that I vetted these comps really well as far as where they are now in comparison to what they were. Like, they started off looking like my property as far as being a
Mhm.
2 bedroom. And now with the additions and the rehabs, I made sure that these were properties that were reflecting the same square footage. I believe all of the comps are within 2 miles. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, although, in the event, because we're not perfect, I could make sure that they're on the same side of my property, making sure there's no highways dividing them or anything like that. I
Yeah.
mean, that's a very good point. Why
I'm
hasn't
gonna be
anybody
I'm
gotten
gonna be
it?
super
Sure.
honest with you, right? I'm gonna be
Yeah,
super honest with you, and I mean this with love.
I'm going to receive it with love.
There's virtually no way
Mm,
that every single investor who's looked at this property on market
okay.
has undervalued it by over $100,000,
Hmm.
and that your numbers are correct.
Okay.
Because if this property was worth $191,000, somebody would have bought it 10 minutes after it went on market for 79,000,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So if whenever there's a huge gap between the asking price and my numbers, what I think I can pay for it, and no one else has come to the same conclusion that, oh my goodness, this deal is underpriced for $100,000 or by $100,000, that means that I'm wrong, that I've done
Okay.
something wrong, right? Which is
Okay.
okay. That's why we practice.
Sure.
That's why we run our numbers. So let's walk through together how I would evaluate this property and what you've chosen as your comps. And this is something that we go through in the boot camp. This is also something that each month I do as part of the Run the Numbers training program. And everybody can grab a free trial of that down below. It's just $9 a month after your free trial. So if you want to stay involved and do this with me twice a month, every month, then you can do so on that. But the first thing that I do when I'm looking at a property is I want to confirm that it is distressed, that it does have the potential to be a good deal. And you already talked about how you know from talking with the homeowner that this is a distressed property. Maybe the actual homeowner was deceased or whatnot, but it is distressed. Then I want to go and I want to look at the area that this property is in, and I want to evaluate, is this an area where an investor would buy a property like this in order to raise the value and either flip it or burr it or whatever it might be. So I like doing this on Redfin. I know you found this on Zillow, but Zillow, Redfin,
Sure.
Realtor.com, they're all going to have like the same listings of the properties. And so
Okay.
I like doing it on Redfin, but I always use this map right here and I click on that. And it has this button that says nearby homes for sale. And so I click on nearby homes for sale. That opens me up in another tab. Can you still see this new tab?
Yes.
Awesome. And the first thing I want to do is I want to establish what are the neighborhood boundaries in this area. And so I know that our property is right around here because Redfin is always going to put it smack dab in the middle. So if we see it's right kind of on this corner of 5th and Goodrich. Okay, so I'm going to go back. So our property's over here on this corner of 5th and Goodrich. And then I'm going to zoom out. And I know that people commonly say within a mile or within 2 miles, but this is a perfect example of a neighborhood where if my property's here, these properties over here might be less than a mile away, but I
Sure.
have to cross a highway to get there. And oftentimes, when you cross a highway, you come into different developments that are going to have different priced houses, different style houses. Maybe even, I know in my area, there's one development that was built in like 1920. And then right across the highway, there's another development that was built in 2020. And so, yes, those are less than a mile apart, but they're not comparable developments, and so we don't
Right.
want to be using those as our comps because that's what comps means, comparables. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what I would do in this situation is I would actually go through and I would draw some boundaries so that I'm not looking at any properties that are outside the major roads surrounding my area, right? So if my property's right here, one major one would be this highway to the north, right? I wouldn't cross
Hmm.
that. I wouldn't cross this major road right here. I wouldn't cross this other highway to the south. And I wouldn't cross this major road, Washington Ave, here on the east. I might even decide not to cross this river right here, even though I don't know this area, right? We're both
Right.
virtual to North Carolina, but I'm actually seeing something right now that's telling me do not cross this river. Do
Sure.
you see what I'm seeing?
The differences in the sale price.
Yeah, so if I'm looking at on
Mhm.
our side of the river, we got 50K, 50K, 135, 250, 290. The other side of the river, we've got
Sure.
325, 419, 650,
600.
796.
Yeah.
Are those comparable neighborhoods?
No, no, not at
No.
all.
So I'm actually going to redo this. And I'm not going to cross this river. Oftentimes, rivers are a neighborhood boundary. And we saw proof of that when we looked at the sales prices.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm going to only look in this area. Now I've handled my geographic boundaries. The next thing I like to look at is what homes were sold in the last 6 months in this area. Okay, sold in the last 6 months. So we've got 21 homes that were sold in the last 6 months in this area. But again, I don't necessarily want to look and see how many distressed properties were sold in this area, because I want to wholesale this property to an end buyer who is going to renovate it. And in order for them to feel confident renovating it, they're going to have to see that somebody else has been renovating in that area so that they have comps. And so that's why I always like to look at what are the top prices per square foot that have sold in this area. The first one doesn't have any pictures, so we'll skip over that for now. The next one we want to look at, and I like to look at that picture, and I like to ask myself, is this a property that was freshly renovated? And Chanel, as I click through these pictures, and for
Sure.
people watching at home, what do you think?
It looks like it. Yeah.
I agree, right? I see fresh paint, updated bedrooms and bathrooms. I see nice light fixtures. I see that this is not a brand new property, right? It's probably an older property. It's got
Right.
original hardwood floors, but it looks like some investor has come in, updated this property in order to
Right.
do exactly what we want our end buyer to do. So this is a good sign. This is a sign that something is going on in this neighborhood that investors are interested in. So great. So yes, I like this property. I think it's been renovated. We're going to go ahead and keep that one up. And then we're going to look at continuing to go down our list. So here's another one. Chanel, what do you think about this property? Sometimes it's a little hard to tell from the exterior.
Sure.
What do we think from the interior view?
It looks, yeah. I think the countertop definitely looks like it was like rehabbed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I also think that taking a picture of an AC unit is kind of their way of saying like, hey, this is a new AC unit, right? Like we put
Yes.
some money
Right.
into this property. We can also
Full
always read
flex.
the
Good info.
description, right? So this is
Sure.
actually just reduced. This is new construction.
Oh,
Okay.
yes, yes,
Very
yes.
interesting. I think that who builds new houses? Investors. So we've
Investors.
got
Yeah.
another sign of investor activity in this neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just continuing to go down my list, and I'll go a little bit
Yes.
faster now, right? So I've got another property here that looks
Sure. It
like,
looks good.
again, it's been freshly renovated. We can see that from the
Yeah.
pictures. So we'll count that one. We've got another one that also looks freshly renovated. Okay,
Sure.
I'm liking that. We're going to count that. And now in my head, I'm like, okay, this neighborhood has some
Yeah.
investor activity that I feel really good about,
Yeah.
right? I've got another one here
Looks good.
also looks really good. And we can actually see this is an interesting one where they've got some fake furniture in here. They've got AI furniture. That's
Sure.
the same picture, but they've got an AI dining room table, some AI plates on the counter. That's an investor. Okay. So we're going to count
Sure.
that. Let's keep going. Okay. So this one. Now, this is an interesting one. Let's look at this.
Yeah.
Does this look like a freshly renovated property?
No.
No, it doesn't, right? So it's not one that I'm going to put on my list. It's not one that
Sure.
I'm going to count because I'm looking for signs of investor activity, right? And so let's say that we stop here, right? And let me look at one more. Okay, we got that one. Okay, so let's say we stop here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 properties that show signs of investor activity. That is great. But now we have to make sure that not only are those properties that are in our neighborhood that show signs of investor activity, but they're also properties that are similar to our property that we can
Sure.
actually compare our property to. So if we go back
Right.
and we look at our actual property that's for sale by owner here, we can see that it's a 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 980 square feet, like you said, right? If we go look at our first property, this is a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, 1,100 square feet. And so I'm guessing this is where you were talking about it needs to be expanded a little bit. It's only 200 square feet bigger, this comparable, but it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And so we would need to add on a bedroom and bathroom to our property. Now, I'm not a contractor. I'm guessing you're not a contractor. Have you had a conversation with the contractor to see if that might be possible?
To add an addition?
Hmm.
No, not specifically,
Okay, so
but it does look like the comps have required that. From my research, I've seen one of my comps listed, like you said, is probably not in the neighborhood, but it started off as a two, and then it got sold, as a three after being rehabbed. And my guess is it's on the other side of that
yeah,
river because it was 540. Yeah,
yeah. Okay. So that's a good sign, right? That there have been other properties that have been
right.
renovated and have gotten additions. But just
Sure.
because one house can get an addition doesn't mean that every house can. And so this
I
might be a
understand.
situation where I would really research how to know if a house can have an addition. And then I would walk
Sure.
that property and see if I can figure out, is there plumbing connected to where I would put the addition? Is the lot big enough to expand the
Sure.
property in order to add an addition, right? So we got to go a little bit of a layer deeper to see if what we want to do is possible for our property. Um,
Sure.
but let's assume that it is, right? Let's assume that we can turn our property into a 3-2, and it would
Sure.
only be 200 square feet smaller than this one. So in that case, this would be a good comparable, potentially.
Yeah.
This one right here is another 3-2, around 1,100 square feet, might be a good comparable. This one here, 3-2, around 1,400 square feet. It's getting a little bit big, right? But we
Right.
don't know how many square feet our addition is gonna bring. So for the purposes of right now, we might keep that. This one, similar thing, so we'll keep that. And then our last one is a 1 bedroom, 1.5 for 825 square feet. This is actually the most true comparable that we have right now because it's the same size, 1 bedroom, one and a
Sure.
half bathroom, very similar to 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom. This is our most legitimate comparable right now without adding an addition.
Sure.
So in this case, I would actually run my numbers in two ways. I would run my numbers without adding addition. Here's an
Okay.
ARV if you just renovate it as is. And then I
Sure.
would run my numbers with an addition. Okay. Here's some 3-2s that you can see what they've sold for. But for the purposes of today, let's go ahead and run it based on the addition numbers, since that's kind of what you've already done, and then we can compare it. So if I go back and I look at, we have 4 properties that are similar in size and make up to what our property would be once we've added that addition.
Right.
I would then look at what's the average sale price that these have sold for, right? So let's do this math together. If we look at
Sure.
our 234,000, okay, we can add that to, okay, 234,000 plus our
Yes.
260,000 plus our 325,000 plus our 262,000. If we add all of that up, it equals 1,081,000. Is that what you got? And then because
Yes.
we had 4 comps, we want to take the average of those. So we divide that 1,081,000 divided by
Sure.
4,
Yes.
and we get what?
270,000
Okay.
to 250.
Yep. So that's one way to get our ARV, 270. What did you say the ARV was?
I said that it was third or 380K.
Okay. So I
We
think
have
this is, remember, we
more.
said your numbers were about 100K off, right?
Sure.
And
Yep.
I think we actually found one of, if not both of the reasons, in that
Absolutely.
you used comps that weren't actually comparable, that weren't actually comps, and that overinflated your pricing, right?
Yes.
And so this is just about continuing to practice running those numbers and making sure that the comps you use for a property are actually good comps for that. Now, I want to go a step further, and I'm going to use this property as the practice problem for this month's Run the Numbers program. And I'll,
Okay.
of course, send this to you, Chanel, and anybody else who wants to see me complete running the numbers on this property. You can grab a free trial of the Run the Numbers program. I'll leave a link in the description. But I'm also concerned about the rehab budget, which is why I want to finish out analyzing this property for you guys,
Absolutely.
because we know that the ARV was too high, and I'm concerned that the rehab budget is also too low. And so, for anybody who's not a contractor, I'm not a contractor. That's why I built out my rehab calculator, which basically has the prices of common renovations already pre-built in. So if you don't know how much money it's going to take to add a new roof to a 980 square foot property, we've got a good estimate for that in the calculator. Or if you don't know how much money it's going to take to add new flooring in there, we've got a good estimate for that in the calculator. So I'm going to run through the numbers for this entire deal and let you know what I would offer on it. But this is a really good first step, an example of why we want to continuously practice running our numbers and making sure that they're as accurate as possible. Are there any other questions you have about this property or kind of your plan going forward?
For sure. So, give me a second. I would
Sure, take your
love,
time.
I like you mentioned, I do have access to the calculator through the
Hmm.
14-day. Sure. I am in contact with the owner here.
Hmm.
What do you think I should do? Like, I don't necessarily have it under contract, full transparency. Would definitely like to get, this 20,000. So what do you think is the next step? Say someone does, run the numbers properly,
Hmm.
and things of that nature. As I mentioned earlier, one of my things is when I'm doing this all part alone, it makes sense if I do it right. But when I go to the agent or the owner, I think that the rest of the process is just way too big for me to take on, which is going to defeat the purpose of me doing
Sure.
my first part anyway.
That's a great
Yeah.
question. I think that especially for you, right? Like if you're not feeling confident in the knowing the entire process, don't put the deal under contract, right?
Right.
What I would actually do is there are obviously investors in that neighborhood who are renovating
Yes.
properties. We found some comps and some examples in 5 minutes.
Sure.
I would reach out to those
Yep. We did.
investors. I think this actually be perfect for you. I would go on PropStream. I would put in those addresses. I would figure out who bought those properties, look up
Yes.
those names on Facebook or skip trace them. PropStream
Sure.
skip tracing is like 10 cents per phone number, right? I would look up those phone numbers. I would get in touch with those investors, and your message that
Okay.
we crafted earlier, not just saying business administration, but I would
Okay.
say also, I know that you renovated a property on Fifth Avenue. There's actually
Yeah.
another distressed property that I think could be great for your next deal. I've already run the numbers. Here's my list of comps and what I think the rehab budget would cost. And I think that if you offered X amount, this would be a good deal for you, right?
Sure.
Rather than putting that property under contract and hoping to find a buyer, I would just go deliver that property with the numbers already run on it to the investor that I want to become their business administration its assistant and
Sure.
prove to them that I know how to research properties and bring good deals to put in front of them.
Okay.
And if somebody did that for me, right? Like, but if somebody was just like, "Hey, Lili, I can do XYZ. And also, here's a property in a neighborhood that you already like investing in. I've already
Sure.
run the numbers. Feel free to vet them or double check them. But this is the type of thing that I can help you do as your assistant. Man,
Sure.
that would be so, so valuable. And then you will gain more experience by working underneath that investor rather than
Right.
feeling like you have to go out and do the entire thing yourself.
Right. Wonderful. I love that. I love that. So pretty much make that a hustle for now until I
Mhm.
am comfortable, maybe even shadow that process and things of that nature. I can do that. I love
You
that.
can do that. You can handle
Yeah.
when that investor is like, yes, Chanel, I like this property. I want you to handle the emails because I'm going to offer on it. I want you to help coordinate the
Okay.
closing with the title company. I want you to meet the contractors there and get their rehab budget for the expansion, right? Like, and I know you're virtual, right? So there's some things you can and
Yeah.
cannot do, but maybe you organize the different times that the contractors are going to be there. You're going to learn so much by being of value to that investor and
Right.
get paid, right? You can set your hourly rate, you can set your by project rate, whatever, however you
Right.
want to do it. And then you don't feel the pressure to have to go out and put that property under contract when you're not actually confident in seeing it through the entire way.
I love that. I love
So
that.
I think you're on the right track. Like, I really think that if you just pivot a little bit, like, you would be really good in that role, and
Yeah.
you can continue to learn and build up your confidence and go from there.
Wonderful. I really appreciate you jumping on with me,
Yeah.
creating this space, Lili, for
Yeah, of
sure.
course. Thanks for booking the
Absolutely.
call with me. Don't forget that my complete breakdown of this deal with Chanel is now up in my Run the Numbers monthly training. You can check it out by using a free trial in the link below. Huge thank you to Chanel for coming on and sharing her story and allowing us all to learn from it. If you enjoyed this episode and want to go deeper working with me in your real estate investing journey, check out the links in the description, and I'll see you next time.